She slapped him without thinking. Seconds later, her entire world began to crumble before her eyes. Have you ever made a mistake so small that you thought no one would care, only to realize it could change your entire life? Daniel Carter never imagined that being 20 minutes late with a pizza delivery would turn his world upside down. But in Kingston, a city where wealth and power dictated everything, one mistake in the wrong neighborhood could mean disaster. That it was a stormy Saturday evening, and Daniel had just finished a long shift at Metro Pizza. His last delivery of the night was to Vivian Lancaster, a well-known real estate broker who lived in the gated community of Willowcrest Estates. She was famous for selling multi-million-dollar homes and for her temper. Daniel had heard about her before. High-class, cold-hearted, and cruel. The kind of woman who looked down on people like him, black, hardworking, and struggling to pay for nursing school. Still, he had a job to do. The roads were slick with rain, and the GPS kept rerouting him due to flooding. By the time he arrived at Vivian's massive mansion, he was 20 minutes late. He took a deep breath, grabbed the insulated pizza bag, and hurried to the towering front door. A moment later, the grand oak doors swung open, revealing Vivian Lancaster. She stood there in an expensive silk robe, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the late hour. A crystal glass of red wine was in her manicured hand, and behind her, the glow of a chandelier worth more than Daniel's entire college tuition sparkled above the marble floors. Her eyes landed on the pizza, then flicked to Daniel's soaked uniform and tired face. And just like that, her expression twisted into pure disgust. "You're late," she hissed, stepping forward. Daniel held up his hands, calm and professional. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. The storm caused some roadblocks, and I tried." Smack. The slap came so fast, so hard, that Daniel barely registered what had happened. His head snapped to the side, pain blooming across his cheek. The force of it made him stumble backward. Silence. For a moment, neither of them moved. Rain poured from the sky, soaking Daniel's uniform as he clutched the pizza bag. Vivian looked at her own hand as if surprised she had done it. Then, with a cruel smirk, she crossed her arms. "That's what happens when you make people like me wait," she said coldly. "Consider it a lesson." Daniel's chest burned with humiliation, but he refused to react. People like Vivian expected reaction. They wanted anger. They wanted a reason to call security, to play the victim. Instead, Daniel inhaled sharply and stood his ground. "Here's your pizza, ma'am," he said, voice steady, though his cheek still stung. He held out the box, refusing to let her see the way his fingers trembled. Vivian scoffed, but before she could say another word, a voice cut through the tension. "What the hell is going on here?" They both turned. Standing on the driveway was an older black woman, Rose Carter, Daniel's grandmother. She had pulled up in her car, headlights cutting through the rain, just in time to witness everything. Vivian blinked in shock as Rose stepped forward, fire in her eyes. Daniel felt his stomach tighten. This was about to get a lot worse. What happens when someone who's used to getting away with everything suddenly faces consequences? Vivian Lancaster had never been confronted before, especially not by someone like Rose Carter. The moment the older woman stepped forward, her presence alone seemed to shift the air. "Did I just see you slap my grandson?" Rose's voice was calm, but there was a dangerous edge to it. Vivian, caught off guard, hesitated for just a second. Then, she straightened her posture, regaining her usual cold arrogance. "I don't know who you are," she said, her tone clipped, "but this boy was late, and where I come from, time is money." Daniel clenched his jaw, his fingers tightening around the pizza box. He could feel the heat of his grandmother's anger beside him, but he also knew she wasn't the kind of woman to explode in rage. No, Rose Carter's fury was controlled, precise, and devastating. Rose took a slow step forward. "Where you come from?" she repeated, raising an eyebrow. "And where is that exactly?" "A place where you put your hands on hard-working young men just because you can." Vivian let out a sharp, mocking laugh. "Oh, please. Don't act like this is some big injustice. It's just a slap." "Just a slap," Rose echoed, her voice quiet but deadly. "That's funny, because when people like you get just a slap in return, suddenly it's assault." Vivian's smirk faltered for the briefest second, but she quickly regained it. "I don't have time for this," she muttered, snatching the pizza box from Daniel's hands. "Here's your money. You can see yourselves out." She turned to go back inside, but Rose wasn't done. "You think your money erases what you did?" Vivian froze in the doorway. She sighed dramatically and turned back. "Oh, what do you want? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. There. Happy. The words were so empty, so insincere, that Daniel felt his stomach turn. Rose, however, simply smiled. "I don't want an apology, Ms. Lancaster," she said smoothly. "I just want you to remember this night." Vivian rolled her eyes. "Believe me, I won't." But that was a lie. Because within 24 hours, the entire city of Kingston would know exactly what she had done. The next morning, Daniel's face was all over social media. Someone had recorded the incident, the slap, the arrogance, everything. A bystander from across the street had captured it on their phone and posted it online. And now, it had gone viral. The video had millions of views. News outlets had picked it up. The headline read, "Arrogant real estate broker slaps young black delivery driver for being 20 minutes late." Daniel's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Friends, classmates, even strangers were reaching out with support. But the person whose phone was probably ringing the loudest? Vivian Lancaster. She woke up to a PR nightmare. The comments were brutal, entitled and racist. "Who slapped someone over pizza? Hope she loses everything." Clients were pulling their listings from her real estate firm. The mayor's office released a statement condemning her behavior. Even her so-called high society friends, Eleanor Westwood and Madeline Hayes, were distancing themselves. Vivian tried to ignore it. This would blow over. It always did. Or so she thought, because that afternoon, her assistant walked into her office, looking terrified. "Ms. Lancaster," she said hesitantly, "you have a visitor from the bank." Vivian frowned. The bank. A man in a sharp suit stepped into the room, his expression unreadable. "Ms. Lancaster," he said smoothly, "we regret to inform you that, due to the recent backlash, several investors are pulling out of their partnerships with your firm." Vivian felt a chill creep down her spine. "That's ridiculous." "Over a video," the banker sighed. "It's not just a video, Ms. Lancaster. It's your reputation. People don't want to do business with someone who assaults employees. There's talk of lawsuits." Vivian's stomach dropped at no. This wasn't happening. The banker continued, "You might want to prepare for financial difficulties." Vivian's hands clenched into fists. This couldn't be real. She was Vivian Lancaster. She had money, power, connections. And yet, for the first time in her life, none of it was enough. Meanwhile, Daniel Carter was experiencing something he never expected. Metro Pizza's manager, Kevin, called him into the office. "Daniel, I know this whole thing has been insane, but I have news." Daniel braced himself. "Am I fired?" Kevin laughed. "Fired? No way. We're giving you a raise." Daniel blinked. "What?" "The whole city is behind you," Kevin explained. "People are lining up to support Metro Pizza. Business has never been better. And someone even started a GoFundMe in your name." Daniel's eyes widened. "A GoFundMe?" Kevin grinned. "Yeah. People want to help you finish nursing school. Last time I checked, it was at $50,000. Daniel's heart pounded. $50,000? That was more than he could have ever saved on his own. For the first time in weeks, he felt hope. But as he left Metro Pizza that night, walking toward his grandmother's car, he saw something he never expected. A figure stood in the rain near the sidewalk. Vivian Lancaster. She looked different. The usual arrogance in her posture was gone. Her designer coat was drenched, her makeup smudged. She hesitated before taking a shaky step forward. "Daniel," she said, her voice raw. I need to talk to you." Daniel stared at her, shocked, because for the first time since the night she slapped him, Vivian Lancaster looked like she was about to cry. Can a person truly change? Or do they only apologize when they have no other choice? Daniel Carter stood outside Metro Pizza, arms crossed, staring at the last person he ever expected to see there. Vivian Lancaster. She wasn't dressed in her usual designer clothes. Instead, she wore a simple blouse and jeans, her hair damp from the light drizzle falling over Kingston. The proud, arrogant woman who had once looked at him like he was nothing now looked defeated. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice lacking the usual confidence. Daniel glanced at his grandmother, Rose Carter, who sat in her car watching carefully. He could already hear her voice in his head, telling him that some people only come crawling back when they have no other choice. Still, curiosity held him in place. About what? Vivian swallowed hard. "Please. Just a minute." Daniel could have walked away. Maybe he should have. But something about the way she stood there, hesitant, almost fragile, made him pause. "Fine," he said. 2 minutes. That's all." Vivian took a shaky breath, as if gathering her thoughts. "My life is falling apart." Daniel raised an eyebrow. And I'm supposed to feel sorry for you? No, she said quickly. I didn't expect this. I thought people would move on, like they always do. She let out a bitter laugh. I've made mistakes before, but this time, I lost everything. Daniel scoffed. Lost everything? You still have a mansion, a fancy car, and a bank account bigger than I'll ever see. Vivian flinched. No, I don't. Daniel frowned. Was this another lie? Vivian sighed. After the video went viral, my business partners dropped me. The firm is collapsing. I had to sell my house just to pay for legal fees because, she hesitated, looking ashamed, because someone is suing me for assault. Daniel wasn't surprised. Good. Vivian nodded, looking away. I deserve that. For the first time, she wasn't making excuses. She ran a hand through her damp hair. I used to believe power and money made someone important. That if you had both, you were untouchable. She let out a bitter chuckle. Turns out I was wrong. Daniel studied her. Was this real? Or was this just another act to save her reputation? What do you want from me, Vivian? She met his eyes, no longer filled with arrogance. To say, I'm sorry, and to mean it. Daniel stayed silent. I was wrong, she continued. Not just that night. My whole life. The way I saw people, the way I treated them. I see it now. And I hate who I was. Her voice cracked. I hate that it took something this big to make me realize it. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Daniel exhaled slowly. An apology doesn't erase what you did. I know, she whispered. But it's a start. 3 weeks later, Kingston witnessed something unexpected. A charity event was announced, raising funds for Metro Pizza employees, delivery drivers, and service workers who had suffered mistreatment. And the biggest donor? Vivian Lancaster. But she didn't just write a check. She attended in person, standing beside Rose Carter and Daniel as they spoke about respect, dignity, and the value of hard work. Vivian, once Kingston's most arrogant socialite, publicly admitted her mistakes. Some people still despised her. Some would never trust her again. But for others, including Daniel, action spoke louder than words. She volunteered. She helped fund scholarships. She rebuilt herself, not as a woman of wealth, but as a woman of character. And as Daniel watched her work beside his grandmother, serving food to families in need, he finally let go of his anger. Because real change doesn't come from words alone. That IT comes from what you choose to do next.